Well, welcome to This Week in Botanical Medicine, a regular weekly Wednesday feature of deeply rooted botanical medicine with me, Stephanie Georgieff. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time with me. And before we get started, I do want to encourage everyone to check out all the courses that I have offered on Teachable. I have a link in the program notes, and we're having a special during August. I actually am going to be releasing a first aid course. It's kind of a mini course on how to manage everyday minor issues, minor health challenges with wonderful living pharmacy, which means plants. And it's a really nice course. And I'll be offering a $50 off coupon. So make sure to look for that coupon. And when you sign up for the course, you will get $50 off, and that will be good for the month of August. And then it will rise in price for $50. So it's basically Botanical First Aid Course, and it will be ready on the 17th of August, but you can sign up now, and you can also get your $50 off. So on to all the news that's fit to print in the world of botanical medicine. And there's always a lot going on. And it's a very interesting time in the world of botanical medicine. And as a white-haired herbalist who's officially now a senior citizen, I've been watching the world of botanical medicine for quite a while now. I would say good 40 years, actually. And it's so interesting, all the different things that are happening now. And one development this week is very interesting and concerning, and I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I feel necessary to share this with you. And this is something that affects policy, international trade, research, etc., of botanical and traditional medicine. Now, there was a historic BRICS, B-R-I-C as in cat, S as in Stephanie, Traditional Medicine Declaration. This was the 16th BRICS Health Minister Meeting, which was in July 24th in India. And this produced a landmark political milestone for traditional, complementary, and integrative medicine. And basically, no one ever wants to say anything anymore in this age of texting. They all, you want to just use acronyms and letters. And so it's TCIM. So it's traditional, complementary, and integrative medicine. And for the first time, the official health ministerial declaration features a dedicated section endorsing a new BRICS expert working group. And the agreement lays out a robust agenda for a multi-country clinical validation, pharmacovigilance, toxicity assessment, and digital knowledge sharing, aligning closely with the WHO Global Traditional Medicine Strategy. So if you're like me and you're paying attention to way too much paying way too much attention to news, I just couldn't remember what BRICS stood for. And I thought, well, what BRICS? What is that? There's a wonderful nightclub in Southern California that has awesome barbecue called BRIX, but this is BRICS. And what BRICS is an intergovernmental organization comprising major emerging economies and developing nations. It was originally formed in 2009 with Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And South Africa joined in 2011. And it's expanding, and this is the interesting and somewhat concerning, especially in terms of global trade. And now there's 11 full member countries. It's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Indonesia. And there are 10 official partner nations, and they operate heavily as a voice and cooperative platforms for the Global South. And BLOC focuses on multilateral collaboration across economic development, geopolitics, trade, and public health. Now, the official text and comprehensive summaries of the 16th BRICS Health Ministerial Declaration, you can get this through official government portals managing the bloc's current chairship. And India is the official 2026 chairship portal. And if you've been listening to This Week in Botanical Medicine for a while, you know India is really doing amazing things regarding traditional and botanical medicine right now. They're funding all sorts of research. They're doing all kinds of government investment in farms and all sorts of things going on. And you know, because Ayurveda is the major medicine paradigm of India. Now, India obviously produces incredible orthodox physicians. They're highly skilled, but there's also this very well practiced and well developed Ayurveda, which is heavily dependent on botanicals. And so, because India is still part of the World Health Organization, and India is, I was in India in 2000, and I remember sitting there observing all sorts of things. I went on a Rotary International exchange program, which was just an amazing experience. And I was part of a healthcare team from North Orange County Rotary Club. And we were in these places in Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh and different places like that. And so we went to all sorts of different places. You know, we were treated, you know, like foreign dignitaries. I remember watching everybody going, you know what, I think this country is going to be a force to be reckoned with because they just have a lot of people there. It's the second most populous country on the planet, and they're very hardworking people. And for the most, they have a wonderful class of highly educated people there that work really hard. And I was, you know, wow, I think America, because I'm a U.S. citizen, I think the United States of America needs to start paying attention to this. And I think this BRICS is something to pay attention to. The Press Information Bureau of India, they have a Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. There's a detailed breakdown of the meeting, and there's all kinds of very interesting breakdowns on specific traditional, complementary, and integrative medicine frameworks, and policy summaries, and all sorts of things. And when you look at the press releases, they have all the leaders of these countries, particularly Russia and China, and it was an interesting thing to watch Vladimir Putin, cheer on botanical medicine. That's all I have to say. And Russia does have an incredible tradition, and they have really amazing resources in botanical medicine and traditions from that. And hopefully, as Russia transitions out of a petroleum-based economy, this botanical medicine sector will offer them some different things. But it was hard to watch these global leaders from what I consider not necessarily well-behaved people that are perpetrating great harm across, several sectors, being all rah-rah about botanical medicine. But it's something we need to pay attention to. Multilateral frameworks like the BRICS Health Declaration provide a massive institutional platform, funding pipelines and scientific validation channels for traditional, complementary, and integrative medicine. And, people such as myself, practitioners and researchers who have spent literally decades trying to get herbalism and cross-cultural plant medicine taken seriously. Because I can tell you, when I started my career, I was thought of as cute. And wasn't that cute. It was sort of like a neat hobby that I did on weekends. And then I was considered a danger to public health and literally screamed at and chased out of certain institutions, literally. And then, was thought of as, well, we can do it better in terms of orthodox medicine. And what I'm hoping for is that we can collaborate, because everybody has something to offer. But these high-level policy milestones are monumental, even if war criminals are heading up the countries promoting them. Now, associating an ancient lineage of healing, which is fundamentally rooted in human stewardship, local ecology, and patient-centered care, with modern geopolitical pageantry, especially from a leader it's hard not to be political making the statements I want to, but I'm not thrilled with the policies of Vladimir Putin towards Ukraine and other places. But traditional medicine draws its cultural and historical legitimacy from grassroots tradition, community care, and an intimate relationship with nature. And this is what happens when you align with centralized state power. This is a very complicated reality to navigate. Now, another issue that is happening, which I think is interesting, and this is where I feel completely out of it, but full disclosure, I have never used any kind of mind-altering substances. I've never done that. I can tell you honestly, I have been high once, and it was a contact high at Long Beach Arena before the smoking laws came into focus, and there was a lot of marijuana smoking. You couldn't see across the arena, and I did inhale. I had to, and I did get high, but that was the only time I didn't partake of the things that were going down the rows of seats for this AC/DC concert that I took my little brothers to. So there's all sorts of things happening with mind-altering psychoactive plants these days. And it's really interesting watching what's going on with cannabis. But way back when I studied with David Hoffman, and that was in the early 1990s, it was really interesting. It was up in Sonoma County in California. And this was really hippie central. in the 90s. It was actually quite amusing. But there were organizations that were active at that time that were all about psychoactive plants that had not yet been scheduled as illegal, Schedule 1 drugs in the United States. I always thought that was quite amusing. But since I do not participate in those things personally, I don't have any judgment against it. I think they can be quite valuable. I do think that Westerners that do these types of plants for specific spiritual experiences, I think that you need to work with people in those traditions who actually know what they're doing. And you often need a lot of preparation before you do something like that. So I'm just my little 2 cents there. One of the regulatory news items this week comes from a substance called Kratom, and I'm completely ignorant of this. Now, when I was staying in Minnesota, one of the local family-owned grocery store chains there had an entire display of psychoactive plant foodstuffs. And this was a very, very respectable grocery store, and we were in the middle of what I call, very evangelical Christian area. So this was really interesting to me that I could buy all sorts of cannabis sodas and foodstuffs along with Kratom. And I was looking at this when I was there, and this was over a year ago. And this young couple came up to me while I was trying to read the label on this, and they told me how great this soda was. So it's just that's a little bit of a digression. But the DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency, action on enhanced Kratom 7-hydroxyl derivatives, beginning in July, the DEA, which is backed by Health and Human Services and the Food and Drug Administration, issued notices of intent for the temporary Schedule 1 placement of high concentration 7-hydroxymittergrenine, which is 7-OH, products and specific synthetic derivatives. And these are the derivatives, and I'm just reading this. I'm totally unaware of these things. MP and MGM-15 and MGM-16. Now, they're targeting heavily processed and synthesized iterations found in commercial tablets and liquid shots. The regulatory text explicitly carves out a distinction to avoid sweeping in traditional unenhanced botanical leaf kratom. So I guess that soda display in the central Minnesota will be fine. Now, kratom is Mittergina speciosa, which to me sounds like something that Hermione would say, is a typical evergreen tree native to Southeast Asia. And these leaves have a long history of traditional use. Indigenous populations historically chewed the leaves or brewed them into tea for mild stimulation to combat fatigue during manual labor or as a traditional remedy for minor aches. The plant's leaves contain complex chemical compounds, and we call these alkaloids, and alkaloids work directly on the nervous system. You drink them every time you drink tea or coffee. And the main one in kratom is called mittergrenine, and there are trace amounts of this 7-OH. In its natural whole leaf form, consumed as a dried powder, crushed leaf, or traditional tea, these alkaloids interact with opioid receptors in the brain. And the overall physiological effect is self-limiting and structurally different from the isolated pharmaceutical opioids. Okay? So federal, state, and regulatory crackdown is not aimed, and there are actually entire societies in states that are really trying to crack down on this, at least the plant, because many states have actually outlawed these beverages and the tea and things like that. So I guess they're really trying to be careful, because, beverage companies pay taxes. I don't know if they've bought crypto to bribe certain current administrators, but the law is not aimed at traditional unenhanced leaf kratom. It targets a booming commercial market of chemically manipulated, highly concentrated extracts and synthetic analogs. And this has been the history of botanical medicine. There's a plant that makes people feel good or does something amazing. And then when the market gets a hold of it, they realize they can't make money off of a plant. And so what they do is they isolate specific chemical substances, and then they enhance them or synthesize them or put a hydroxyl group or whatever, and they try to patent it. And when something is used out of its natural form, it tends to do weird things to the human body. So hopefully these federal health agencies, the Health and Human Services, HHS, FDA, and DEA, are trying to mitigate the problems, and they're putting a temporary Schedule I placement, which designates substances with a high potential for abuse and no accepted medical use, because the enhanced products bypass the self-limiting nature of the natural plant. And apparently people are getting addicted to all this stuff. They're absorbing things improperly, and there is a public safety issue. People are not overdosing on Kratom beverages, so that little couple that I met in Minnesota will be thrilled. And the traditional leaf teas and mild commercial seltzers will still be available. In some states, if those beverages have a heavy extract or concentrated versions, there's a group of states that are outlawing these beverages. And Tennessee has a full ban, and a larger group of states utilize the Kratom Consumer Protection Act. So it's just really interesting. One of the benefits of being a natural health care practitioner specifically, but also a medical professional, is it is just there. You will never be bored. Everything is interesting and it's endless. And so definitely keep informed as to whether or not your state allows Kratom sodas. So that is all the news that's fit to print this first week of August 2026. So this is Stephanie Georgieff saying thank you so much for spending your valuable time with me. Make sure to check out the links in the program notes and take advantage of the Herbal First Aid discount coupon if you go to my teachable school, which is called Living Pharmacy. So until our next episode, be well.